talking about doing maybe like a mini fest.
That would be cool.
In
his
honor of him,
memory.
man. Yeah, it's one of those things like, I'm trying to figure out like, well, like if we could put some money, I'd like to give his mom some money, like his he came from a very blue collar, poor, not super poor, but like a working class family, like super blue collar, and it'd be cool to do something for his family, man, because they weren't super involved in his life and didn't know the effect that he had on people and how loved that dude was, man. Like I was talking to Blake about this the other day from Knockmistium, and here's another guy with addiction stuff that I'll get into that in a minute. But we were just talking about like how there was nobody cooler to tour with, man. Like, he was the funniest fucking dude ever. Like the dude just like had an outrageous sense of humor, and you never had a bad time around him, even if the situation was grim as hell. And on top of that, like, he also worked his ass off on his drums. You know what I mean? And when he would screw up on a show, he would fix the, like, a lot of people don't fix the problems. They have a hard time just being like, oh man, I actually suck at this thing, and I have to fix it. Like, he wouldn't make you talk to him about having be sucking at a part or sucking at a certain kind of thing. He would always be like fixing himself,
Yeah.
Where I find with musicians, dude, the hardest thing that they have, to do is tell themselves, oh, I'm not the best ever, and I have to work at this still. You know what I mean? Like, that was a really hard thing for Eric, man, from Cobalt. Like, he didn't play in a lot of bands with other people. Everything he did was by himself, so he kind of just was able to kind of tell himself, oh yeah, I'm the best. I don't have to work on anything, and I don't have to adjust anybody's thing, And then when I started playing with him, I was like, oh well, you should really work on your tempo and this, that, the other thing, and he was really bummed out.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never been told, that he had a weak point, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You got to be able to take that. It's important.
Yeah, man. And Billy was always able to take that and, never have a bad attitude towards you for mentioning it. And, he was like, the crazy thing when that happened, man, was like, none of us thought that was the guy who was going to do that, all right? He was like the leader of our group, man. He was like, if ever there was like an alpha male, obviously he was the alpha male, but you know what I'm saying? We all looked up to him, like, even in like a physical way, Billy was a tough dude. He was, you didn't fuck with him, you know what I mean? Like, that guy would whoop your ass. And, he kind of looked out for all of us, in a tough town. And, same thing with money, dude. Like, if you needed, if he saw you were broke, you wouldn't even have to ask him. He'd just give you $50, Like, and it's weird. Have you ever seen your dad cry, John? You ever seen that?
Yeah, it's rare, but I know what you're talking about already.
Yeah, it's a horrifying thing. It's like when you're a kid and you realize the adults aren't always right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it was like when he killed himself, man. It was like, dude, like, if he killed himself and he was the bravest out of all of us, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for the rest of us?
Yeah, it was shattering. Like, it was shattered a whole thing in our heads, man. And not just the dudes in the band, but like people outside of the band saw him like that. In a way he was kind of like looked up to by a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
So, and had, how do you talk to a guy like that about their addiction? You know what I mean? How do you tell him that he's out of line? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, especially, I'm sure there are plenty of times too where it's like, well, I could say that, but Bill could just come back and be like, who the fuck are you to tell me about this? Like, y'all are dealing with your own shit.
That's the thing. But you know what? Who better to tell you about it than someone who's going through the same thing? And the same thing, I talked to Blake, a lot of the shit me and Blake talk about is our addiction stuff, man. And it's also like a different thing being an addict as a musician, right?